I always told myself I was in control. That was the lie I lived by, the one that made everything feel justified. I had power, I had freedom, I had money. And in a world where everything was transactional, I convinced myself that I was the one setting the terms. OnlyFans was easy money. No managers, no clubs, no men in dark rooms expecting something from me in person. Just a camera, a screen, and an audience that worshipped me from afar. It felt safe. I wasn't selling myself in the way that other girls did. I wasn't on the streets. I wasn't being forced into anything. I had chosen this life, so there was nothing to feel ashamed of. At least, that's what I told myself. But deep down, I knew. There was no real power in this. No real control. No real love. Just thousands of faceless men paying to own a piece of me, no matter how much I convinced myself otherwise. My body was no longer mine. It belonged to strangers who called me a goddess while reducing me to nothing more than content. And the worst part, I let them. Because the money was good. Because the validation was addicting. Because it made me feel wanted, even if I knew it wasn't real. I had spent years laughing at the idea of morality, of limits, of God. I told myself he wasn't real, or if he was, he didn't care. If he cared, he wouldn't have let my life turn out the way it did. And so, I shut him out. I shut everything out. Until the night everything changed. I had been staring at my screen for hours, scrolling through numbers, reading messages from men who thought they knew me. It had become routine, an endless cycle of playing a part, responding in just the right way to keep them coming back, keep the money flowing. But that night, something felt off. A heaviness sat in my chest, pressing down on me in a way I couldn't explain. I shook it off, blaming exhaustion, stress, maybe even guilt. Not that I ever let myself think about that for long. Then, without warning, a sharp, searing pain tore through my chest. I gasped, clutching at my shirt, my fingers trembling as I struggled to breathe. My heart pounded violently, my vision swimming, my body betraying me in a way it never had before. I tried to stand, but my legs gave out beneath me. I fell. And as my head hit the floor, the world around me vanished. I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I wasn't anywhere. The moment I opened my eyes, I knew something was wrong. There was no sound, no walls, no ground beneath me. Just an endless, suffocating void stretching in every direction. It wasn't darkness, it was emptiness, a kind of nothingness that swallowed everything, including me. Panic clawed at my throat. I turned, looking for something, anything, but there was nothing to find. No door, no way out. And then I heard it. A voice, not loud, not angry, just calm. You thought you were in control. The words sent a chill through me. I spun around, trying to find the source, but there was no one there. The voice wasn't coming from one place. It was coming from everywhere. And then I heard the whispers. Soft at first, then louder, repeating my own words. I don't need God. I built this life on my own. My body, my choice. The voices mocked me, each word twisting in the air like something alive, something that knew me better than I knew myself. I covered my ears, squeezing my eyes shut. This isn't real, I whispered. This isn't real. But it was, and in that moment, I knew exactly where I was. I'd spent my whole life rejecting God. Now, I was standing in a place where he didn't exist. I tried to move, but there was nothing beneath me. No ground, no walls, no sky. Just an endless abyss, stretching in every direction, swallowing everything, including me. It wasn't darkness. Darkness was something you could escape. This was something worse. Emptiness. A void that pulled at me as if I was nothing more than a thought slipping into oblivion. Then came the whispers. At first, they were distant, like echoes bouncing off invisible walls. But the longer I stood there, the louder they became. They weren't unfamiliar. They were my own words. I don't need anyone. I make my own choices. I'm in control. I shut my eyes, trying to make them stop. But the words only grew louder, twisting into something cruel, something mocking. They weren't just repeating what I had said. They were revealing the truth behind the lies I had told myself for years. You thought you were free, but you were a slave. You thought you were powerful, but you sold yourself for money. You thought you were loved, but they never saw you as anything more than a body. Tears burned down my face. I shook my head violently. That's not true. My voice broke as I screamed into the emptiness. I was in control. I chose this life. The whispers laughed. Not a sound, not a voice, but something deeper. The air itself trembled with it, as if the very fabric of this place was amused at my denial. I had spent my life running from the truth, but here, in this place, there was nowhere left to run. Then, from somewhere within the void, a voice spoke. You built your life on a lie. The weight of the words crashed over me, forcing me to my knees. I had never been in control. I had spent years convincing myself that I was free, that I was using men, using the system, making it work for me. But all along, I had been the one being used by the people who profited off me, used by the men who paid to own a piece of me, used by the darkness I had willingly walked into, and now there was nothing left. I had laughed at hell, called it a fairy tale, a scare tactic for religious fanatics, but as I sat there, surrounded by the suffocating silence, by the weight of everything I had chosen, I realized something that shattered me to my core. Hell wasn't fire, it was separation. From love, from peace, from God. I had always assumed God was just there. That if I ever changed my mind, if I ever wanted to turn things around, he would just be waiting for me like an option on a menu. I had never considered what it would feel like to exist in a place where he wasn't. And now I was here. Alone, forever. I curled into myself, sobs racking my body. Please, I whispered. I don't want this. I didn't know. But the whispers only grew louder, circling me like a noose tightening around my soul. You never wanted to know. I covered my face, shaking, unable to breathe. God, if you're real, please. My voice cracked, my throat raw from the weight of my own terror. Please, I don't want to be here. Then everything stopped. The whispers vanished. The air shifted, and in the midst of that suffocating void, I saw it. A light. Not just a glow, not just a distant flicker, a presence so powerful, so overwhelming that the abyss itself seemed to recoil from it. And then he stepped forward. Jesus. I had spent my entire life mocking him, laughing at the people who worshipped him, rejecting the very idea that he had any place in my world. But now, standing before him, I realized I had never known what power was until this moment. His eyes met mine, and in that instant, I felt everything I had ever done laid bare before him. Every sin, every lie, every moment I had turned my back on him. He saw all of it, and yet, I had never felt so loved. The shame that had crushed me a moment ago was still there, but it didn't consume me. His presence burned through it, stripping away the filth, the lies, the chains I had wrapped around myself for so many years. Tears streamed down my face as I collapsed at his feet. I don't deserve you, I whispered. I spent my whole life rejecting you. His voice was calm, steady, but I never rejected you. My breath caught in my throat. He had never given up on me, even when I had turned my back, even when I had spat on his name, even when I had chosen a life that had led me straight into the abyss. He had still come for me. I sobbed, my body shaking, my hands clutching at the ground that wasn't really there. Please, I begged, please, I don't want to go back to that life. The light around him grew, wrapping around me, flooding through me, filling every part of me that had been empty for so long. And then, the abyss was gone. The whispers were gone. And I knew without a doubt that I had been saved. I gasped as air filled my lungs, my chest rising in a desperate attempt to pull me back into existence. My body felt heavy, my limbs weak, as if I had been buried under something too vast to comprehend. I blinked rapidly, the fluorescent lights above me piercing through my vision. The beeping of machines echoed in my ears, the sterile scent of antiseptic filling my nose. I was alive. I turned my head slowly, and there, gripping my hand so tightly it hurt, was my mother. Her face was streaked with dried tears, her lips moving in silent prayer, even as her eyes flickered open. The moment she saw me awake, she let out a choked sob and threw herself over me, holding me as if she could keep me here by sheer will alone. "Oh, my baby," she whispered, her body shaking against mine. "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you." Tears welled in my own eyes as I stared at the ceiling, my heart still racing, my mind struggling to process everything. I had been gone. I had seen what was waiting for me. I had felt the pull of the abyss, the weight of my own choices dragging me towards something I had spent my entire life denying. And I had been saved, not because I had deserved it, not because I had done anything to earn it, but because Jesus had never stopped loving me. I could still feel his presence lingering in my soul, as if the light he had wrapped me in was still burning inside me. It wasn't just a memory, it wasn't just a vision, it was real. And now I had to decide what to do with it. The doctors told me I had collapsed from a sudden cardiac episode. No drugs in my system, no warning signs, just my heart stopping for no apparent reason, and then restarting again. They called it a miracle. I knew it was more than that. It was a rescue. I had spent years rejecting God, convinced I didn't need him, but the moment I had stepped into eternity, the moment I had seen what was waiting for me on the other side, I had begged for him to come for me. And he had. That truth settled deep in my chest, heavier than anything I had ever known. I had no excuse to go back to my old life. How could I? I had been given a second chance, and now I had to figure out what that meant. Leaving OnlyFans wasn't as simple as deleting my account. It wasn't just a platform, it had been my identity. Everything I had built, my money, my following, my self-worth, had been wrapped up in this version of me that I had created, a version that had been designed for men's pleasure. But it was all a lie, and now I couldn't live a lie anymore. I shut down my account, just like that. Thousands of dollars in revenue gone. The messages, the subscriptions, the fans, all of it wiped away in a moment. The old me would have panicked, would have thought I was throwing everything away, but the new me? I felt free for the first time in my life, and yet I had no idea what came next. I had built my entire world on sin, on selling my body, on chasing validation from people who never truly cared about me. Without that, I didn't know who I was. So, I did the only thing I could. I turned to the only one who had ever truly loved me. That first Sunday, I stepped into church for the first time since I was a child. I expected judgment. I expected whispers, looks, people seeing me as the woman I had been. I had spent so many years convincing myself that Christians were hypocrites, that they would never accept someone like me, that I had fallen too far to ever belong here. But no one looked at me with condemnation. They looked at me with love, because that's who Jesus is. Not the God I had imagined in my head, not some distant, angry figure waiting to punish me. He was the Savior who had chased me into the darkness and pulled me out with his own hands. As I sat in the back, tears slipping silently down my face while the worship music played, I knew I could never go back to who I was. I had been given a second chance for a reason. Now, I had to find out what that reason was. I spent years believing that money made me powerful, that attention made me valuable, that the more men desired me, the more I mattered. I had sold myself, not just my body, but my identity, my worth, my soul, all for the illusion of control, but I wasn't in control. Not then, and not now. The difference was, before, I had been blind to it. Now, I saw the truth. And once you see the truth, you can never go back. Leaving OnlyFans was the easy part. Leaving the mentality I had lived with for so long, that was harder. For the first time in years, I had no idea who I was. The person I had been was gone, stripped away the moment Jesus saved me from the abyss. But the person I was meant to become, I had no idea what she looked like. I started small. I threw away everything that tied me to that old life. The outfits, the props, the camera setup that had made me tens of thousands of dollars. Every piece of that past, every item that had once defined me, I destroyed. And then I started filling my life with something new. I read the Bible, not just as words, but as if my life depended on it. And the more I read, the more I realized. It did. Every verse felt like a mirror, showing me the person I had been, but also showing me the mercy of the one who had saved me. I spent time in prayer, learning how to talk to a God I had spent so many years running from. At first, I wasn't sure how, but the more I prayed, the more I felt him there, guiding me, leading me, holding me when I felt lost. And I started going to church, not just to sit in the back, not just to blend in, but to truly seek God. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. One night, months after I'd left my old life behind, I got a message. It was from a girl I used to know. How did you do it? At first, I didn't understand what she meant, but then another message followed. I want out, but I don't know how. I stared at the screen for a long time, my heart breaking, because I knew exactly how she felt. Trapped, like she had gone too far, done too much, sold too many pieces of herself to ever be whole again. But I knew something she didn't. She wasn't too far gone. No one was. I took a deep breath and typed back, "You don't have to do it alone. Come home." I had once believed my body was my only currency. Now I knew my testimony was the most powerful thing I had, because I had once been lost. I had once stood on the edge of hell itself. And now I was living proof that Jesus saves. He doesn't just forgive, he rescues. He restores. He makes all things new. And if he could save me, he could save anyone. Save anyone.